Tell you what, go into your working folder and open up directgroupselection.ai. Ain't they cute? They're both playing with mice. Wind up mouse and a mouse. Anyway, we're going to talk about the next two tools over here. Incidentally, we have a regular selection tool. We have a direct and group selection tool. We have a magic wand, and we have a lasso selection tool. And we will cover all those in this chapter. Well, let's start this way. Let's pick up our regular selection tool just for a second. These guys over here, I've already put into a group. Now, there are a whole bunch of pieces. This one I haven't yet. This is the only one that isn't in its own group yet. So if I come over here with my regular selection tool and grab something, I can. I can pick it up, grab it, I can move it. Whatever I want to do. Let me put that back again with an undo. I need to group that guy too. So the first thing, let's talk about just a basic group. I pick up my run-of-the-mill selection tool and I do a marquee around everything. That's just a quick way to select it all. And it's all selected. I go up to the word object on the pull-down menu and go down to group, or use control, and that's control in Windows, command on a Mac, G as in group. Okay, these guys are now in a group, which means if I use my regular selection tool on them, it selects the entire group. Now, even though they're made up of about a dozen or so pieces, that means I can control, do anything I want to the group. Now, he's a bigger cat. Let me bring him back down again. Grouping allows me to temporarily put things together, because anytime I want to, I can select a group, go back to the word object and say ungroup, or Shift Control, that's Shift Control Windows or Shift Command on a Mac G, and ungroup them. So we can group and we can ungroup these guys. Now we can group inside of groups, but let's talk about these two tools right here. Let's go ahead and open this up. We've got a direct selection tool and a group selection tool. Let's do this too because we can. Let's tear it off by clicking here, and so we have them right over here. And you can have as many of these tear-offs as you want for different tools that you're using. What's the group selection tool? Well, the group selection tool allows me to get into a group and select a piece of the group without ungrouping it. So if I pick up that tool, even though we know that this guy right here is a group, I can go in and I can grab, and I could say, well, do that if I want to. But if I go back over, look at this. If I come back over and pick up my regular selection tool, which selects groups, that's still part of that group even though I moved it. Let me go ahead and undo that and put it back together again. So this tool allows me the ability to get inside of a group and make changes to something in the group. We'll talk about this one in a second. Let's do this. Let's pick up our regular tool again, and let's select all three of these guys. Now they're all in groups. Now let's make a group out of those three groups. That's called a nest. We'll go up to the word object and say group. Okay, let's take our bears right here. That's what I think that is, a bear. And go up to the word object and group those. And the other cats over here, let's do the same thing. So each one of these is a group, and now each one of these sets is also a group. Let's take this one step further, because these are now groups. As you can see, let's take this group and group those. You can take this grouping thing as far as you want it to go. So they're a group now. We're going to shift click over here and get them and make a group out of them. So now we have groups inside of groups, inside of groups, inside of groups. That's nesting grouping. That's where this tool comes in. Okay, we can still pick up this one and come over here and still play around and make changes to individual pieces by using that tool. But if I pick up this tool, if I come over and click, I get that piece again, so there's no difference. If I click again, I get the first group. If I click again, I get the next group. If I click again, you get it, I get the next group. And I click again, I get the next group. A lot of times when I'm doing very complicated shapes, maybe it's a face and a body, I'll group facial features together into the face, into the neck, into the body. I've got groups inside of groups inside of groups, and there's times that I need to select based on a certain level or group, and that's when I would use that tool. Now there is another way. Let me show you something else here. Let me go ahead and close that for now. There is another way to get a piece out of a group without ungrouping it. Let me show you this real quick. Pick up your regular selection tool. If I come over here and double click, notice what happened. I went into something called isolation mode. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about this later. Notice how the words directing group selection and the 1, 2, 3 at the bottom got light gray. Now watch when I double click again. Notice the cats on the right went gray. I'm getting down. I'm drilling into the groups. Double click again, double click again, double click again. Finally, I get the piece. Now, that's not the easiest way to get there, but you're in something called an isolation group. I'm going to press escape to get out of that. That is just one more way that if I want to get to a piece within a group, and if it's a small group, that's actually a pretty easy way to do it. So grouping or ungrouping, if we want to get out of here now, we can click here. Go up to the word object and say ungroup, and it will ungroup just that group over here. Select again. See, now we got the 2. We can ungroup again. And now we got this group, and we could keep that process up. Grouping to me is important because there's nothing, or actually there's very few things in Adobe Illustrator that don't become complicated pretty quickly. And the ability to group things like this and then move them, I think is pretty important.